June. All right, our next speaker, Tom Woods, is the founder of New York Times best-selling author of 11 books, and a senior fellow of the Ludwig von Mises Institute, and he holds a bachelor's degree in history from Harvard, his master's, MPhil, and PhD from Columbia. Let's hear it from Tom Woods.
This is the best slot of the night because everybody's drunk, right? Everything's funny now, right? Good. I want to tell you guys one thing about Mike Church, whom you just heard from. Mike Church, what's singing? More like this. Ooh, wow, listen to that effect. Wow. I want to tell you about Mike Church. Now, Mike Church has the 6 to 9 a.m. slot on Sirius XM Patriot. You should be listening to this guy. Let me tell you what. Not only is he smart and entertaining, but this is a guy who risked his career to side with Ron Paul. He was a neocon for many years. And then he switched, and he became a Ron Paul supporter, and he began to lose listeners over it, but he stuck with it anyway. We should stick by him. And incidentally, he's taken some slings and arrows for this. Some of you may know a certain radio host named... I haven't even said the guy's name. Come on. Mark Levin. You know this guy? All right, so Mark Levin has been attacking Mike and attacking me and some of these other people. But watch the way, look at the way Mike responds. Levin attacks us by calling us names and making fun, but Mike responds with facts, and he conducts himself in a manner that is worthy of the cause he represents. That is a lesson for all of us. We are ambassadors of a great cause. There's no need for having a gutter mouth. You conduct yourself so that you're a class act when you represent these ideas to the world. Now, I want to talk to you guys tonight about my favorite character in all of literature. Wonko the Sane. Anybody know Wonko the Sane? Anybody ever read Douglas Adams' The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Yeah! There's a dorky crowd for you. That's right. The 4th book in the series has a character named Wonko the Sane. Wonko the Sane lived in an inside-out house because he became convinced one day that the whole world was a giant insane asylum. And the thing that tipped him over was he bought a box of toothpicks one day, and they had directions on them to use toothpicks. And he said, that's it. This is an insane world. That's it. I'm retreating from this world. So he's got this inside-out house to reflect the fact the whole world is in what he calls inside the asylum. But inside his little area is outside the asylum. And I think this is how we feel today. We feel like there's a tiny, tiny sliver of people who are basically sane, and we're surrounded by a regime and a media that has completely lost their minds. I mean, apparently it's morally okay to launch a war on the most absurd, transparent pretext, kill maybe 1 million people, displace 4 million people, and this is mainstream. That's a mainstream position. No one has ever been called an extremist for saying, yeah, let's go ahead and kill all those people for no good reason. That's not extreme. You know what's extreme? Extreme is saying maybe we shouldn't do that. We in this room, we are all Wonko the Sane. because we are here outside the asylum. But out there, it's all the insanity. You can starve 500,000 children with your sanctions policy in Iraq. No one was ever called an extremist for that, right? Who was ever called an extremist for supporting that policy, or even, as government officials said, defending it and saying the price was worth it? No one was called an extremist for that, but you know what you were called an extremist for? For saying maybe we shouldn't do that. It's Rocco the same. But here's my favorite example. Not the last debate, 2 debates ago. Rick Santorum. You remember Rick Santorum? Now, I know I should not call people names. I try to be dignified most of the time. But to reflect I sometimes call him Quiz Bowl Santorum because of his knowledge level. And I mean that ironically, of course. But Santorum and Ron Paul had this exchange on the subject of Iran. And Santorum says, oh, you know, they've hated us since 1979. And you notice that they have hated us for no apparent reason. Just one day they woke up and said, man, we hate those people. There's no reason for it. We're just irrational. So Ron Paul says, wait a minute, hello, I think it goes back to 1953 when the CIA helped overthrow their government. Like that might have a teensy-weensy bit to do with it. Now, if they simply liberated Iran from its government, that would be one thing. But they replaced it with the Shah, who was not a good guy. I mean, if I were to describe to you the forms of torture he used on political opponents, you would not be able to eat for a week. And yet, so Ron Paul says this, and says, you know, maybe that has a teensy-weensy bit to do with why the U.S. isn't left over there. And Santorum responds by saying, I'm not going to apologize for spreading freedom around the world. Ron Paul is Rocco the same. What could that statement even mean? Apparently it means that when the U.S. government installs a dictator in your country, you better like it. Because by definition, that's freedom. What kind of a world is this? And this just goes on and on. The state has a hold over our minds. It has a hold over the left, and it has a hold over the right. The left thinks that if it weren't for our wise overlords, we'd all be dead in a ditch and earning 3 cents an hour and eating poisoned food, and all our consumer products would be exploding in our faces. And the right thinks, well, if it weren't for the regime, well, then we'd all be speaking Arabic and all the rest, right? We all know that. They've all got something that the state, they think they can get the state to promise them. But what in fact has been going on is that the state has us thinking that it is us. You notice how you hear on TV, should we invade Iran? Or should we starve them? How dare they say we? It's them. It's this whole we thing that dehumanizes us and dehumanizes the them. Because it makes us think that war is like a big video game that I can watch on my TV. And isn't it cool to see all the U.S. flags all over the foreign country, showing how the occupation is perceived? This is deeply dehumanizing and evil, and it's so easy to get caught up in it. Americans accept propaganda from their government that if it came from the Soviet Union, they would have laughed at it. But it comes from the Pentagon, and they get down and worship. They go around looking for ways to defend the propaganda. It's very easy to fall into this. And in fact, have you noticed how the neocons think it's perfectly okay for us not to like Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden and Barack Obama? But heaven forfend that Iranians don't like Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden or Barack Obama. How dare they? This is America. How dare you not like us? But wait a minute. I have a funny feeling that the Iranians have just as good a reason not to like Hillary Clinton as we do. Now, the confession I have to make is that for a long time, I too went along with this. The first time, I mean, I'm so embarrassed to tell you guys this. I guess the alcohol is starting to have its effect. But the first conversation I ever had with my college roommate was to tell him how much we needed to go get Saddam in 1991. This is so important. We got to go get this guy. He's threatening the world. This guy whose military budget is 0.25% of the U.S. military budget. What a dangerous threat to us all. I mean, he's deposing the Emir of Kuwait, for heaven's sake. And I went for the whole thing until one day I realized I can't do this anymore because I was hearing these news reports about retreating Iraqi troops being burned alive, 100,000 of them, and then in the U.S. they're having a Bob Hope special to celebrate this. And I thought, even though I supported this war, a lot of orphans and widows have just been created. How can I celebrate this? How can I celebrate this? So I started to think. And you notice that what if 100,000 people in Iraq had died because of an earthquake or whatever, or some kind of natural disaster? Well, then people would send money and we'd have telethons, we'd never hear the end of it, it'd be great. But if they die in a war, no one cares. They're just human garbage. Because that's them, it's not we, it's them. But them and we belong to the same people. That is the human freaking race here. Now, the one man in public life who has escaped the asylum, won't go the same himself, is of course Ron Paul. Now, let's suppose Ron Paul gets elected. Now, some people say if he gets elected, he won't be able to accomplish anything. I totally disagree. Number one, he could simply pardon a huge number of people. Number two, by executive order, he could repeal all the bad executive orders. Not bad. But number three, and this is what, even if he could accomplish nothing else, imagine 4 years of somebody who tells the truth about foreign policy to the American people. I don't care if he accomplishes nothing else, but we hear something other than this miserable third-grade excuse for an argument that they hate us because we're just so sweet and wonderful, and we march against breast cancer, and we have barbecues, and we play badminton. Wouldn't that be great? But now the other argument is, if he gets elected, won't he get blamed for the big economic collapse? Now, I grant you that is a concern. That's a real argument. But I think something that offsets that is that, again, for 4 years, the guy can teach Austrian economics and highlight books and professors people ought to listen to and read. That's pretty good. All right, now 3 years ago this month, there was a fantastic event in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Rally for the Republic that Ron Paul held. So Ron Paul refuses to endorse John McCain. So they will not give him a speaking slot at the Republican convention, so he holds his own convention. I mean, come on! Wow! And at that event, now, first of all, how the heck did that event take place? All the hotel space had been taken up and reserved for months because of the Republican convention. All the rental cars are taken, everything. How did 10,000 Ron Paul supporters get there? Because every one of us, well, mostly, I can't believe how creative all you guys are, by the way. Some of you people have talents that, if I had 5 lifetimes, I couldn't do some of the things you guys do. But we figured it out, and we made it happen, and at that event, Lou Rockwell comes out and mentions the name Murray Rothbard. And he gets this response. This is unbelievable. The Austrian theory of the business cycle was mentioned, and this gets a big cheer. But something is going on here. Something is going on, because we've got a lot of dedicated people, but also smart people. Smart people who read and who listen to podcasts, and who, you know, some of you guys are the sort who, if you're walking down the street for 10 minutes, you think, I can't afford to waste these 10 minutes, so where's my iPod so I can listen to some lecture? Wow, that's unbelievable. So here's what you got to do. Don't keep this knowledge to yourselves, right? We've got to share this knowledge. And so here's one thing I want to urge you to do. If you're not already doing something, you're wondering what you can do, start a freaking blog, okay? Instead of forwarding all those emails to your friends, post about them and comment on them on your blog. And as you do that, you get to be a better and better writer. And that's a good talent to have regardless of what you accomplish. But secondly, do you realize how exciting a time we're living in for people who are interested in ideas? You can have a YouTube channel, you can tell the world what you think about something, and it will be there forever. Forever. Because ideas are immortal. Dick Cheney is not immortal, but ideas are. And your YouTube channel, as far as I can see, is immortal. Once it's up there, it's there forever. And you just make a habit of it. Once a week, comment on something. You could be that link that brings somebody out of the darkness and the confusion of the asylum and into the light and the truth of freedom and peace. That is my challenge to you, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you guys very much. So now what we're going to do is world premiere the new Ron Paul television ad that Revolution PAC has made. I want to introduce this. I just want to get you situated here. Bear in mind that 60 seconds go by so fast. You can't believe it. And it's very hard to write a 60-second ad script. It's always too long. You have to keep cutting, you have to keep cutting, and every line you cut is like your heart is being ripped out. I can't do without this line, but yet you have to. So we made this ad, and what we want to do is differentiate Ron Paul, right? That's the first principle of marketing. Differentiate your product. So we are not saying Ron Paul is a great budget balancer and he's 12% better than the other Republicans. No. He is entirely a class apart. That's what we're emphasizing. First, the emptiness of the opposition, and secondly, the fact that he doesn't talk to us in slogans, and that he was against the bailouts. Remember, the Tea Party voted Bob Bennett out of the U.S. Senate in Utah because he supported TARP. Why not point out that Romney and Perry also supported TARP? Why are we keeping this a secret? So finally, the last thing I'll ask before we show it is, you will be almost overwhelmingly tempted to jeer at the bad guys and to cheer the good guys. But I'm asking you, please, try to keep that to the end. Keep that to the end, because I want you to hear every word of this thing. Because I do believe this is the first political ad in U.S. history that refers to other candidates as shills for the bankers, and it would be a shame for you not to hear that. Okay, let's go.
If you believe the media, here's our choice for president. This pretty boy or that pretty boy. Mitt Romney, who is praised by Barack Obama for his Massachusetts healthcare program. Or Rick Perry, who applauded Hillary's healthcare plan and forced young girls in Texas to be injected with an STD vaccine. Wait a minute, can't we do better? How about a man who gives us the truth, not a bunch of rehearsed answers, who saw the housing collapse coming when other candidates were oblivious, and whose devotion to freedom and the Constitution no other candidate can even touch? They supported the bailouts. Ron Paul said no. And only Ron Paul listens to our founding fathers who warned that constant war means debt, taxes, and the destruction of a republic. everything Ron Paul has predicted is coming true. We need the teacher, not the student. A man of integrity, not a shill for the bankers. A statesman, not a plastic man. For jobs, for prosperity, for freedom. Ron Paul for president. The Revolution PAC is responsible for this communication.
All right, Dan, now listen, we want to hear Jordan Page. All right, now listen, we want to hear Jordan Page, but I got to make an appeal to you guys. Now, do you want to see that ad on TV in early primary states? Then you got to help us. It's going to come out on YouTube on Monday. You got to donate at revolutionpac.com. It will happen if you guys let it happen. We'll run this thing and we'll run a lot more just like it if you guys help us. And spread the word. If you guys know a millionaire, you send this ad to him. We need that $1 million. All right, thank you. Thank you very much.